Alright, guys, so welcome to the June 2013 Advanced League of Legends Statistic Vlog. I'm Gelati, the guy that's here all the time, the guy that started this whole thing. And if you're new, welcome. I encourage you to check out the previous month's videos and the blog for the information from last month. If you're a frequenter, thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. Quickly, before I start anything else, I've had, I'm adding gold and gold per minute to the sheet. So I started tracking that a little bit this month, but I'm not going to put the stats on here for this month because I started like later in the month. I will have that for next month for sure. Other thing is, before we get into the numbers, June was kind of like a really rough month for me. The games themselves were stressful. I had a really hectic real life schedule, and I've had almost 3 weeks of nearly unplayable lag. Like, my ISP changed the way they route to Riot's servers, so there's a bottleneck happening somewhere in like East Jabib, like somewhere in the middle of the United States. Like, there's some kind of a error happening or some hardware malfunction or something that's causing me to have like 30, 40, 50 higher ping and spikes that are coming with it. And it's pretty close to unplayable for me. So that's why you'll notice, the first thing you'll notice this month's stats, I've played like half as many games as I normally play. So I just wanted to give you guys kind of an explanation for why that's happening, and to let you know that they're not just bullshit excuses. They are, that's like a real thing. So before I ramble on anymore, let's go right into the stats for this month and the last month. On the left, you'll see May. On the right, you will see June. So, first things first, it's a damn good thing I got plat because I went on a terrible, terrible streak. I finished the month 21 and 31 compared to last month where I was, plus 12 in my win-loss. I am now minus 10. That's a pretty big difference. Also, factor in that there were 2 dodges, one due to DC, the other due to Power's failure. And I also had a third game in here that I didn't note, where the servers crashed, so I was the only person on my team, and the other team had 3 people. So 3v1's pretty hard when you're playing Leona. So I was in Plat 5 for the entirety of the month. I got up to my placement for Plat 4 once, but it didn't go so well. I went 1 and 2. No big deal. But from that point, I just got smacked down. There was a while this month where I could not get above 20 LP to save my life, and I lost a ton of games at 0. So that's why I said it's kind of a good thing I got Plat 5. And we'll go more into the KTA or KDA here. I had a much higher one last month, like across the board. So I died slightly more. I had about a kill fewer per game. What's that? 0.7 assists less a game. Overall, just not very good. My team performed a lot less well as well, but that happens when you're losing. I only had a 4-game winning streak, and I usually can put together more than that, but I could not do so this month. And I had, as far as I can remember, an all-time high 10-game losing streak. One of those losses was, in fact, a DC. So maybe I would have won that one. I don't know, but I'm counting that. And it was a 10-game losing streak. And as far back as I can remember in ranked, I've never had a 10-game losing streak. I've had a couple 7s and 8s, but maybe this is a tilting issue that I need to sort out. So I guess we'll find out. LP loss gain, not that much different. Highest P kills and assists. I had a 21 kill game and a 20 kill game. One on Rise, one on Karthus. So that was interesting. Make sure this is okay. Here we go. Combat grades. Peak PCS 4 or 5. That's kind of a big difference, but that was a Karthus game, so it's hard to judge that. I had roughly the same lane effectiveness. I didn't have as much jungle help as I did last month, or outside lane help I should say, because it could be mid or top as well. I didn't have nearly as much outside lane influence for as I did last month, and I had slightly more against. So that was a lot of times it was jungle camping mid, and I didn't roam as well as I did last month either. So that's worth noting, and I will talk about that more at the end. I had roughly the same positive contribution to my team, but I had double the negative contribution to my team. And what this contribution is, for those of you that don't know, is I take my KDA, my kills and assists, divided by my total team's kills and assists, and that gives me the positive contribution average. And the negative is my deaths divided by the team's deaths. So this is a percentage, but I just, I don't put it as a percentage because it's not, like a raw percentage, and I don't want to look at it that way necessarily. So that gives me a net average of negative 0.74. So not as negative as last month. So if you take any single game, on average, like if you average all my games together, I will have a very, very slight negative um, contribution to my team. So that's not what you want. Um, I did go back and count how many positive contribution games I had versus negative contribution games, and I had 28 positive and 24 negative, which tells me that for that 4 game difference, that means that the games that I'm losing hard, or the games that I'm contributing negatively, I should say, because they're not always losses. The games that I'm contributing negatively to are big negatives, to enough so to outweigh the positive games that I've had. So that's going to be something I want to talk about in a little bit once we get through all the numbers here. I've had less average damage done to champions. And what this is I take I take the team's total damage done to champions, and I divide my damage done to champions by the team's damage done to champions to give me a percent. Generally, it's lower, almost 3% lower. If you take the support games out of the equation, it's a little less, but it's still like 2.5% lower. Or not, like 2% lower, 1.8, whatever it is. So that means I'm not doing as much damage, generally speaking. Most played champions, Cassiopeia again. Record wasn't as good this month. KDA wasn't as good, but when you consider I lost a lot of games and that I had a lot more jungle presence against me when I was playing Cassiopeia, that ratio is actually not too bad. It's not a good ratio, don't get me wrong. You want to be in the threes, but it's not quite as bad as it looks. Not as effective in lane. That's actually a pretty big difference because, and it affects the enemy average CS too, if you think about it. Where you have, they're getting roughly 50 more farm a game because I'm not having as much effect, like enough of a positive effect in lane. Cassiopeia inherently is a lane bully, so I'm apparently not doing that as much as I should be, or I'm just playing against better people. It could be a combination of both. So I kind of need to go back and reattack how I'm approaching the champion. I think roaming grave was slightly higher than it was last month, so that's good. My average damage done to champions per game on her is through the roof, 30.3. So I'm playing the hyper carry role, like the Cassiopeia hyper carry role, quite well. But that could also mean that like I've just had bad teams when I play her, and I'm not doing, I'm doing most of the damage because my other carries aren't fed. I have had a negative contribution grade, which is worth noting on her, even though I've had this insane amount of damage done. So I'm still trying to come up with a way to factor in this percent and the contribution grade into a more accurate, like actual like contribution to the team kind of thing. But I'm still working on a system to develop for that. Second most played this month was Jaina, and I forgot to write down the win loss, but I know it was negative because I lost a lot of games. She was close to 500 if I remember correctly. Last game it was Rise. I played some Rise this month too, but Jaina was my next most. I think it was 14 games. No, it was like 12 games with her, and I had a decent KDA. Like 4.15 is a pretty good KDA as support, but supports tend to have higher ones anyway. So I really want to be trying to push that higher. And I didn't play bad. It's good because I had less than a kill per game, which is good. I mean, it's hard to get kills on Jaina, but generally you want to give your kills to the other people on your team anyway. Average enemy CS that's kind of high, not like through the roof, but it's not a big deal. I laned quite effectively with her. It's hard to lose lane with Jaina. Sometimes it's hard to win, but it's hard to really lose. So that's kind of a skewed number as well. Got a lot of jungle help, and even ganking a Jaina lane isn't as effective as you'd think. But for some reason, junglers helped me when I played her, and junglers helped the other team a decent amount too, but not quite as much as mine. That's not just junglers, that's mids too, or mids, tops, whoever it is. and I had a pretty solid contribution grade with her, so it's pretty good. I played 15 champions again. I think the only different champion I played in rank this month was Nami. I'm not sure who I cut, like which champion got cut out. Maybe Tristan. I think it was Tristan. I didn't play any Trist this month, and Nami got added. So that's the only difference there. That's good because I wanted to maintain that small champ pool. I shouldn't duo anymore. Like this just tells me like I should absolutely not duo queue anymore. And this is 3 months in a row where I've had negative duo queue record, but it keeps getting worse and worse. Average match time was 2 minutes longer than it was last month. I had two sub 20-minute games. I had um six post 50-minute games, including this friggin' almost hour and 5 minute long slugfest that we did lose. But a lot more longer games happening, a lot more like 30 to 35 range than last month. Well, not more, but there's a lot like over the past couple months. Like most games have been falling in this 30 to 35 range. Like, and I figure like you could think like standard deviation, like bell curve, but it does vary quite a bit. And there's usually not this huge back end of like epic 50 plus minute games that I've had this month, which kind of contributed to the stressful games I was mentioning earlier. Nothing too abnormal in the pick order statistics, except for my duo queue partners. And if you remember, I duoed 19 games this month. Every single game, my duo queue partner was last pick. And maybe that's because I'm plat. Maybe it's because at the time I was duoing, my matchmaking was sky high, and now it's in the in the toilet, so to speak. Other than that, like nothing too out of the ordinary. Not too good in fourth pick for whatever reason, but nothing too abnormal there. Most frequent opponents were Lux and specifically Ezreal Sona. I saw Ezreal in probably 70% of the games this month, but specifically Ezreal Sona, I leaned against the five games, and I did not do well in either. I did not have a strongest matchup because other than Ezreal and Sona and Lux, I did not play anybody more than 3 times, like a specific champion. So I did not count that information this month. This matchup is terrible for me, and a lot of it has to do with the fact that I played Zyra and Jaina for 4 out of these 5 games, and that's just a really terrible matchup for both of those champions. And it shows. Ezreal got a lot of farm, and we ended up losing the game. Even though it's a 4-to-1 KDA almost. No, it's like a 3.1-to-1 KDA. So it's or 2.9-to-1 KDA. So not that bad, but still not very good either. Didn't face any summoners more than once. First Blood's 4 and against, considering the number of games. That's pretty normal. One thing I wanted to work on from last month was to continue stopping while I was ahead. I had a good record last month in last games of my session, and I went right back to this month where I clearly played 1 game too many. Now that could be 1 game too many, or it could have just been I got unlucky and lost those last games. But generally speaking, I played 1 too many this month, at least within a single session. Positional record and statistics. So I wanted to go over this because there's a pretty drastic drop off. I really should change my name to mid and support Gelati because I played all of my games mid and support, and one game is AD, 1 game is jungle, no games is top this month. So I played 52 games, 26 mid, I think it was 24 or 22 was support, and the other 2 were AD and jungle. Not really a good mid KDA at all. It's like 0.6 down from last month. My lane effectiveness is down almost half a point. I mean, I got a lot more pressure, like jungle pressure against me, including a couple games where I just got camped to oblivion. And I'm getting a lot less help from my jungler, so that could contribute to that. Roaming less, that's influenced by the amount of jungle presence. And I didn't track the contribution grade for last month, at least I didn't write it down. But I've generally had a negative contribution to my team when playing mid, so that's something I don't want. And there were situations, this month where I had laggy games or something, I was tilting. But that's something I want to improve for next month. It's not a bad support KDA, but it's not really good either. So I'm generally effective in lane as support, and I generally contribute positively as support. So That's good. Environmental statistics, nothing too crazy except for a negative record in the night block compared to the positive one from last month. So we'll see. Nothing crazy. Day of the week, I'm 2-8 on Tuesday is apparently not my day. But music and day of the week, that most of that's just for fun. Nothing too crazy there. So one thing I wanted to talk about before lowering is I'm going to try something new. And at the end of each of these videos, I'm going to give myself 3 main points to improve upon for next month, like specific statistic-oriented things to improve my gameplay from lessons learned from this month that I want to apply and improve for next month. So, for example, like last month I wanted to die less. So, did I accomplish this? No. I died a little bit more. So it wasn't like continuing the progression, like the downward progression, like at the same pace. So it has like sort of bottomed out. But I stopped the bleeding, so to speak. But I'm still dying more. I'm still dying more. So that's not something you want. So I didn't accomplish that. So I want to do something like this. And for this month, I'm going to lay out 3 specific things that I want to do to improve for next month. 3 specific things to focus on. The first one I want to do is to just improve my lane effectiveness. Statistics-wise, that means improve the lane effectiveness score. But generally, like philosophically speaking, I want to just simplify laning. I don't want to be cocky, but I do want to have presence, and I want to start using thinking logically and not like playing emotionally, like the way what I've been doing. Don't play something as I feel like it. Don't not follow the other mid because I don't feel like it. That kind of thing. Like be decisive, and that's something I got to work on. Like just in general, like get back to basics with laning. Number 2, I want to reduce my average deaths per game, and which thusly improving my KDA. But I've had a lot of deaths this month due to indecisiveness or a lack of situational awareness. So you don't want to die that way. Like the only time you should die is when you take a calculated risk and aren't rewarded for it, or you take a calculated okay, I'm gonna try to ult 5 people so that my team can ace. But if I die in the process, it'll be fine as long as they ace, like that kind of thing. Or if the other team just makes a good play on you. So those are the only deaths that should ever happen. They should be like calculated like in your head. They should be the only time like you ever die. Every other time should be eliminated the best you can. So that's number 2, just die less. Number 3, I'm going to try to reduce negative contribution. This is kind of along the lines of reducing deaths, but in other words, like you're gonna lose games. Like everybody loses games, even the pros lose games. But I need to show some more self-control and prevent like contributing negatively to my team, because that's gonna give my team the best chance to make a comeback in a game we're losing, or to stay ahead in a game that we're winning. This applies to like morale as well as the actual like gold that's being given to the other team and everything. So 3 things: improve lane effectiveness, reduce my average deaths per game, and reduce the negative team contribution. So those are 3 things I want to improve for next month. I encourage you guys to follow me on Twitter, subscribe to me on my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/GelatiLOL. The blog is gelatilol.blogspot.com. You can check that out. I will post all the hard data over on that website. Thanks for watching. Subscribe on YouTube, all that stuff. Add me in game, whatever you guys got to do. And I thank you all for watching, and hope you guys come back soon.